fragments in distal radius fracture. So I intend to present two cases where in the first case I used a plate and K-wire construct since I could not get away with the plate, and hence I used this technique for the second case. Both cases were open, reduced and fixed using the anterior approach. So first case was a 28-year-old who presented to us 6 weeks after his injury with a 2-3-P3 type of fracture, which was managed initially by below elbow POP cast. Because the traction film showed decent enough X-ray, surgeon decided to do this. However, if you observe the initial X-rays, there is a small volar fragment along with which the carpus has subluxed volarly, and also we can see that the fragment is in the region of lunate facet. So this is how this is how he presented to us 6 weeks later with such gross swelling, pain and decreased movements. So his X-ray shows that it has come along with the fragment volarly and proximally, giving an impression that ulna was almost abutting against the corpus. So essentially it is an articular shear fracture of a lunate fragment along with volar subluxation, one variety of a volar limb fracture. The challenges here would be proximal migration, volar subluxation, 6 weeks old duration and a smaller size of the fragment. We tried to quantify the size of the fragment, but unfortunately we had a very poor quality CT with the patient and he was not willing to get a second one. So we anticipated and we were prepared for a difficult reduction and we went with whatever implants were available with this. So we thought we'll put an X-fix since it was an old case, do the reduction by reversing the displacement directions, get our K-wires in, put a plate, fasten it with screws, and once it is done we'll remove the K-wires. But somehow it didn't go as planned. So these are our CM pictures. So this is full manual traction, but the fragments were not coming into place. So we had to put an X-fix. Our reduction was decent enough, our provisional wires were in place. So, but when we put the plate, we could not put it beyond this, as we all know, because we can't place the plate beyond the watershed line. The fragment was very distant, so we had to separately fix it with K-wires and leave the K-wires in place. So in addition to a difficult reduction, difficult dissection and the presence of fibrous tissue at the fracture and also a friable fragment, we could not, it's moving fast. We could not get any screws in the distal holes of the plate. So our shortcomings were we had to rely on K-wires for fixing the distal fragment, and plate, although was buttressing the distal fragment, it is not acting like a single construct which was anchoring both the proximal and distal fragment. So this is the latest follow-up showing decent union and range of movement, but we thought we could have done better. So a take-home point from this case was, although a single construct was desirable to fix such fragments, it is not always possible given the anatomical limitations and also the smaller size of the fragment. So these rim fragments are often unrecognized or unacknowledged because the rarity of occurrence being one of the main drawbacks. We don't see them enough to speak enough about them. So how did we land at this technique? When we dealt our first case of rim fracture, we could not get any screws in the distal part of the plate. So we thought we have to think of an alternative method of fixation, and that is when we employed this technique. So second case was also of a similar profile in a 25-year-old who presented with the following X-ray. Since he was not having other injuries, we went ahead and got a CT scan. Here the CT scan was much better. It showed us that the fragment was in the scaphoid fossa, along with which we had an avulsion fragment of the radial styloid, and we could also note some comminution which was not present in our earlier case. So this was essentially a volar limb fracture of the scaphoid fossa, contrast to the lunate fossa which we have seen in the earlier case. So additional challenge being a comminution as well, in addition to the small size and the carpal subluxation. So the problems we've anticipated, apart from a difficult dissection, handling the fragment, provisional fixation and hyperlimbic damage, was how do we convert this to a definitive fixation without compromising the provisional fixation. So we need meticulous planning just like in any other case, from right away from diagnosis to our post-operative rehabilitation. So once we thought we gave a manual traction, we could put K-wires, but now the question arises, how do we fix? So here although we have a lot of implants at hand, none of them seem relevant in this case, because one is a cost constraint with some sophisticated implants, a comminution, smaller size of the fragment, and also our watershed line beyond which we cannot place an implant. So alternatives are this fragment specific volar hook plate, and one method described by Orin Franco, wherein while the wire is still in the distal fragment, they are bent over the radial shaft and then it is fastened with plates and screws. But my concerns with such methods are, when the wire is still in the fragment, we can rotate the fragment. If we don't apply the technique properly, fragment might be lifted off its tissue attachments, and iatrogenically also we might produce some comminution. So this is a pin plate which is made from a single long K-wire and bent in the form as shown and fastened with screws. This might look promising. However, again my concern was, how do we fix it while inserting this implant? How do we hold the fixation? So little modification of this construct, what we have done is 2 separate K-wires were used for provisional fixation, 2 separate K-wires were pre-bent, which are inserted one after another in the trajectory already given by the K-wires, and these are fastened with a 1-hole tubular plate cut from a 1/3 tubular plate. So essentially these are our provisional wires, there goes our pre-bent wires, driven inside, and once the proximal part is off the shaft, which is buttressed against the shaft with our 1-hole tubular plate. So this is how tip is measured so that it doesn't cause the cortex. This is how I bend the wire. And I've given a volar mold by referencing it against the standard volar distal radius walking plate. I've cut it to the length of a 3-hole plate because beyond that is not necessary for such distal fractures. This is how the construct looks. These are my provisional wires. And once they are inside, this is how I locked it. The anterior approach and the fragments can be seen here. Post-op X-ray, 3 weeks and 4 months post-op, patient is doing fine. So the problems with the alternative methods are converting to a definitive fixation and ensuring stability while we are converting to a definitive fixation, and maybe costing for certain implants. This method ensures fixation in both distal and proximal fragments, easily reproducible, can be prepared across all the setups, cheap, doesn't need any special instrumentation or technique, and it also is a stable construct. 3-column theory clearly states that your scaphoid fossa along with the styloid process and your lunate facet both are essential osseous buttresses against carpal subluxation. Lunate facet has also been coined as sustentaculum lunatum by some authors, highlighting the importance of it against carpal subluxation. So all the volar plating is an accepted method for most of the open reduction of distal fractures. It may not be suitable in all the fracture patterns, especially such rim fractures which are common in the lunate facet, dorsally as well, and the scaphoid facet as well. Here is where we need alternative strategies like K-wires, TBW, mini screws or constructs like how we described now. Since such fractures are very rare, we don't have any consensus on risk factors for displacement or which is the standard method. So what I learned, such fractures need to be identified preoperatively to avoid any such complications. So whenever we encounter such fractures which will cause radiocarpal instability, this described method is an effective, simple, reproducible and cost-effective strategy for such fractures. These have been my references, and thanks for the opportunity.